Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free movie review of Thunderbolts, aka the new Avengers. That is why I waited to do this review, because I knew it was coming. I knew when I saw that asterisk next to Thunderbolts that name was going to change. Just knowing about the comics, where Marvel is going, I knew that eventually they were going to rebuild the Avengers. I didn't think it was going to be the Young Avengers. So I saw this coming, went to see it with Kelsey's family. Nobody there knew. But after opening weekend, Monday morning, Marvel starts rolling out on socials. Sebastian Stan goes out onto the streets, changing the posters. And that is how quickly they spoiled their own movie. I have a theory now. I think Marvel is trying to capitalize on those opening weekend ticket sales and make their movies an event again. So much so that if you don't go watch their movies now on opening weekend, you're going to have it spoiled. And them doing that so fast, I think they're saying, hey, we used to give you a week, 2 weeks before they would turn off comments. Now, when you have all the actors posting about it on the official accounts, they changed it. And that was a turning point in the movie. But now everybody knows. So I think what they're trying to say by doing that is, hey, you have to go see this opening weekend if you don't want it spoiled. That contributes to their opening weekend numbers. They get a big pop. It starts to become like a sporting event. And I love it. I'm all here for it. And the reason I even do this podcast now is because how much I love superhero movies, how invested I am in the MCU. Even when everybody was jumping ship saying the MCU is dead, it was over after Endgame, I stuck around. Has it all been great? No. I think for the majority, the movies have still been good. TV shows are a different thing, but I try not to focus on too much of that. But I think that is what they are trying to say now that Phase 5 is completely closed out. But I think that's why they did that, and that's why I waited to do this, because I feel like I could have expressed all my things without them putting that out there, although I'm still surprised that they did. But I also think that by doing that, they create more of a conversation, because I think the whole thing going into Thunderbolts is nobody really knew these characters. People were kind of confused by it. Oh, it's just another Marvel movie. But now by calling it the new Avengers, people know what the Avengers are. They love the Avengers. It's going to pique more people's curiosity and want to go see the movie, especially with it getting great reviews. And me going into Thunderbolts, I thought it was going to be average. I didn't really love the trailers leading into it. I love Florence Pugh. Her character was, I just think overall the Black Widow storyline hasn't been my favorite in the MCU, but up until this point, we haven't had that well-rounded of a Black Widow. So I think going into the 36th movie in the MCU, there is that fatigue for the general audience. I don't really think I had fatigue. I would take a new Marvel movie every single week if you could give it to me. But what Thunderbolts did essentially was recreating what the Avengers did back in 2012. You take your B team and you build your new franchise. And I think that is what sometimes people forget when it comes to the MCU, is back in the 90s and early 2000s, Marvel was selling off all their characters. They were almost bankrupt. And the reason the MCU is successful is because they didn't have their big characters. Thor, Iron Man, Captain America were not their top-selling comic book characters. It was the ones they sold off. It was X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. So they built the Avengers with characters people really didn't know and did such a good job at it that now those are the household names. But now they're back doing it again with Thunderbolts. But what the Thunderbolts are is a group of anti-heroes. They've been hired by Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, who sends them on covert missions, doing a lot of shady things for her, killing people, blowing things up, all under the radar. All of them have done bad things in the past, and for the most part, you won't recognize many of them except Sebastian Stan, who has been in the Avengers movies, who has been in the Captain America movies, playing Bucky Barnes. But you have Florence Pugh. We first saw her in Black Widow as Scarlett Johansson, aka Black Widow's sister. We have Wyatt Russell, who plays John Walker, who debuted in the Captain America Disney Plus show. We have Ghost, who first appeared in the second Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. a couple of characters from the Black Widow movie, Taskmaster, and also David Harbour's character, the Red Guardian. New character introduced is played by Lewis Pullman, who plays a guy named Bob, who I feel is the new breakout star in this movie, and he also happens to be Bill Pullman's son. So they all get sent on a mission. She's trying to cover her tracks. She's about to go to prison if they start finding all this evidence, and all of the Thunderbolts are loose ends. So she sends them all to this very remote location in this vault where she's keeping all of her paraphernalia and all the things that could incriminate her, and they are the human things that really could incriminate her, and she gives them the task of killing another person in the group. So one person arrives, then the next person arrives to kill them, then another person arrives to kill them, and pretty much they're just realizing that, oh, we were all sent here to kill each other. We got to go back and fight against Julia Louis-Dreyfus because she's evil. So then it all backfires on her because now she sent this group of mercenaries to go kill each other, and now they're all coming for her. My favorite thing about Thunderbolts is we are back to having great action. My biggest problem with the last MCU movie, Captain America Brave New World, is the action felt so stale. Because when you remember back to those Captain America movies and what made those great, they had great choreography, they had great pacing, the fights actually meant something. And in Brave New World, it was just kind of filler. Not the case with Thunderbolts, which brings back that energy of, oh, there are some fights going down where there's actually something on the line. They're choreographed well. They use their powers well. And it just doesn't feel like, oh, we're just going to throw this fight scene in here to fill time. Each one is actually important. And I think all the characters in the Thunderbolts all have unique abilities that distinguish themselves from one another, which is important. When you're trying to build a new team, you have to have clear roles, you have to have clear ways that people fight, and things that make each of these characters unique to really make them stand out. And I think the action was overall top tier in this movie and really sucked me in. Within the first hour, I was fully invested. And a lot of times when I go watch a movie, especially a Marvel movie, I'm really dialed in. I'm thinking of it analytically. I'm thinking of it in regards to how I'm going to do this podcast. For the first hour of the Thunderbolts, I didn't think that way at all. It just flew by because I was so engaged and interested in this story, which I wouldn't say reinvented the MCU formula, but it definitely gave me something to root for again. It also didn't lean too much into the comedy, which sometimes the MCU gets a little bit cornball with the superhero humor. There are some moments of that. I think David Harbour is probably the biggest piece of comic relief. But aside from that, the movie didn't take itself too seriously, but it took itself seriously enough to create a tone of, this doesn't feel like your typical Marvel movie, which I think for some of the films, they started playing to a younger audience, dumbing it down just a little bit. But I think the best MCU movies are ones that they can say, okay, we're going to make a movie that doesn't talk down to maybe the kids we are trying to inspire, trying to build a new fan base in new MCU fans, because you already have the older people like me in their 30s who are heavily invested and are probably going to be so critical of an MCU movie at this point, but they're still going to go watch it. They're still going to talk about it. You're still going to get their money. But in order to keep a franchise like this alive, you got to put new blood into the fan base. And how do you do that? You give them something that doesn't talk down to them, same way you did back in 2012 with the Avengers. This is what it is. Some of it's going to be a little bit more gritty. Even with the language, they're more generous with their S-bombs and their... I don't think there was an F-bomb in this that I remember, but they're just talking more like these characters would in real life and not really cleaning it up for the sake of thinking you're going to alienate the young fans, because at this point, what's a curse word? And when it comes down to it, we just got back to great storytelling and also having a lead that can carry a movie. Florence Pugh is that. And I think that is why some of the other Marvel movies have struggled a little bit, is because we're focused a little bit too much on the characters as far as how they play into the entire story, and thinking, okay, it makes sense for this character to carry on this line of the story. But when you think about it as a movie, you also have to pick somebody who is going to get the butts in the seats and going to be able to handle it. And Florence Pugh is that. She is, in Phase 5, is probably overall the best actor who could do a role tomorrow and get an Oscar nomination, but also come to the MCU and really bring another tier of acting here. And there were so many parallels between this movie and Avengers 1. There's even one scene where they're all fighting, and it very much mirrored Avengers 1 whenever you have them fighting in New York. It has that revolving camera swoop around them when they're all back to back forming the circle. We had that again here in the Thunderbolts. I don't know, and I wouldn't really compare Florence Pugh to a Robert Downey Jr. with her being pretty much the leader of this group. I think a lot of people are comparing her performance as the new Black Widow to Scarlett Johansson's, which I think is kind of unfair because unfortunately, Scarlett Johansson got her movie too late. And when they introduced her character, she was very one dimensional in the Iron Man movies. When she was introduced, it was essentially, oh, here's this sexy character. Oh, she can fight. Oh, wow. And you kind of learn about her past all through these little details that leak out about her having blood on her hands and all the awful things that she's done. You get to know a little bit more about her. They try to humanize her a little bit in Age of Ultron with a relationship with Bruce Banner that never really panned out. That whole thing is kind of interesting. Kind of one of the weirdest plot lines in the MCU. But we never really got her story until it was too late in Black Widow. And really that was more her setting up Florence Pugh to have the career she is having now in the MCU. I really think they're trying to recapture that energy of the early 2010s. Even now with the directors they're picking, focusing people who maybe it's their first or second feature film. Jake Schreier, I think, did an amazing job with this, but this is his biggest credit to date. And I think Marvel always bringing in those who are a little bit unproven, but knowing they can give them these parameters, which is probably hard as a director in the MCU because you want to put your spin on it. You want to put your trademarks and creativity into an MCU film. But there are guidelines. It is much like if you work in animation, you can't go too far off of the character model because all the scenes have to look the same. You can't draw Homer Simpson differently because you want to add your own unique artistic abilities to it. Because Homer Simpson has to look the same in every single episode, season to season. That is exactly how it is directing movies in the MCU, where you can put things in that make it your film, but it also has to line up with the structure and flow and look of what is coming after it. But I think Jake did a fantastic job with Thunderbolts and really gave us something to root for. And the moment this movie had that I've been looking for a very long time in all the MCU movies is that moment of triumph. To have a villain that is beating down your characters to the point of you saying, I don't know if they're going to make it through this. I won't say what happens to these characters, but it has that, that satisfaction factor of these characters actually go through something. They have struggles. They have things that look like they're not going to pan out for them, and you have to watch the entire movie to really find out how it's going to end. You're not predicting it by Act 1. And that is really inspiring to me at this point in the MCU. For the Thunderbolts, I give it 4.5 out of 5 boxes of Wheaties.